Happy Monday, and thank you for tuning in for everybody who's watching now and who will watch later. The topic of the day is a question I want to pose. And what do you know about gentrification? Here's what I know about gentrification. There's an underlying goal to legally discriminate against certain classes of people. This was mentioned in Boys in the Hood, in the scene where Lawrence Fishburne took Trey and Ricky to that empty lot and was talking to them about the way um, the government will rent out properties at a low income price, and then once they built up the community using those funds off of that, then they'll go ahead and push those people out by raising the rent to where you can't afford it anymore. And then once they do that, they move the more wealthier people in to take advantage of the resources that were built around that community. It's called gentrification. It's a legally systematic way of discriminating certain classes of people. An example of gentrification is, well, there's a couple of examples. One is called redlining. Between the 1930s and the early 1960s, the government put in place a systematic way to deny resources according to the names and addresses of citizens. So they immediately look at you and listen to your name and look at your address, and immediately you're disqualified. So that's why, if you think about it, we have college graduates. Many college graduates complain of how they are not able to get a job, even though they went to school, they graduated, and they have a bachelor's, they have a master's, even a PhD, and they have such a hard time finding work. And if you think about it, when you apply for a job, you put in a resume. The first page of a resume is a cover letter for the most part. On the cover letter, what's the first thing they have at the top? Your name and your address. So many times before employers are even flip to the page that contains your education and your skills and abilities, they've already saw your name is Tamika and you live in the hood, and they're already throwing your application in the trash. That could explain why many college graduates are having such a hard time finding a job. It's called redlining. That's when they discriminate against you according to your name and your address where you live. We may never know about this. I mean, you would never, to find out and to uncover all of these cases where people have been discriminated against because of their name and their address. It'll be something really hard to crack down on, because it's like happening under the rug. It's happening behind closed doors. Many people don't even realize that it's happening to them. All they know is that I have the skills, I have the abilities, I have this degree. Why can't I use it? Another example of gentrification started to take place in the 20th century. It's called white flighting. White flighting is when they migrate. They take whites from one area to the next area, where the next area is more financially stable. An example of this is from public to private schools. It's kind of like they're telling people, hey, you guys come over here. There's another school over here with better education system. And the way we're going to stop the minorities from following you guys to this private school is by making it to where they can't afford it. So that's called white flagging. White flighting. They waive the people who can afford the money, which is the people above the poverty line, which are not going to be minorities for the most part. They wave them over there to private schools, to the suburban areas, and everybody else gets left behind. They tell them, hey, we're over here. As long as you have enough money, as long as you're above the poverty line, you'll be able to afford better education and better housing. Two other examples, it's called urban renewal and the foreclosure crisis. Those are also examples of gentrification. I'm going to leave those two up to my viewers. I want to offer $100 to the person who can go and find something out about urban renewal and the foreclosure crisis, and talk about, let's see, I want you guys to talk about who does that affect? Who does that benefit? What is it? What is urban renewal? What is the foreclosure crisis? Who is benefiting the most? and who is it negatively affecting the most? The first person that can come into this comment section, and do not copy and paste something from a website that you find it on. When you go on, you find information, I would like for you to type in your own words, what is urban renewal and what is the foreclosure crisis? Who does it affect negatively and who does it benefit? What is it? And again, one idea of how you think that those two things can be overcome. So I want to close this by saying I want to urge all the minorities, the people of color, blacks, whites, browns. Whites are already they don't need this type of encouragement because they're above the poverty line. This stuff doesn't affect them in a negative way for the most part. Not the privileged white people, but I want to encourage all the minority people of color to start your own legacy. We have to start opening up our own businesses. We have to start building our own foundation so that our children, our nieces, and our nephews don't have to beg anyone for a better education. They don't have to beg anyone for better housing because we're going to provide that for them. We're going to start building our own foundations so that our own people don't have to beg anyone on the outside for it. We need more gas stations that's black owned. That's a good industry. That's a good profit right there. Gas stations. We need banks. We need banks that's owned by blacks that will grant blacks a loan to be able to afford better housing and be able to afford education and be able to afford to start their own business. We need things like this in the community that's owned by blacks that or the minority that's Latinos, Indians, people from the indigenous tribes. We need to start building our own foundations for our people to be able to benefit so we can rise above the poverty line. Otherwise, we're pretty much doomed because, like I say, this gentrification thing is a systematic process and it's happening behind closed doors. Most people do not know about it. So like I said, the first person to go and comment and talk about urban renewal and the foreclosure crisis, how that affects minorities in a negative way. What is it and how we can overcome it? I will PayPal you $100. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in, for checking me out. And I'm going to attach my video with my audio samples to this in about 30 minutes. Give me about 30 minutes and I will have that video attached. In the meantime, you guys educate yourselves. Go and find out what is gentrification. Maybe it'll help you better understand why things are happening the way it's happening out here. Why you can have a college degree, the highest form, you can have a PhD and still not be able to find a job because they're looking at our names and our addresses. The first thing they see on the resume or on a cover letter, and they're automatically disqualifying us, and we have no idea that this is taking place right in front of our faces. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. This is your girl, Anita Tequila. Until next time, deuces.